The U.S. tax code is like a roadmap of how to save on your taxes, how to invest properly for tax advantage purposes, how you can grow your wealth. Most people don't know how to navigate that, but our guest today is a specialist in this area. Not only does he know the tax code in and out and how to take advantage of that through tax advantaged accounts, but Derreck Long from Quest Trust Company actually walks the halls of Congress shaping legislation to increase our ability to increase our wealth through all these different strategies. We're pleased to have him today. I guarantee you're going to learn something. Tax planning is not just for the wealthy, not just for the folks closer to retirement. You can start at any age. We're going to show you how you can start tax advantage investing for your kids who are a year old. So we have something for everybody today. So I'm glad you joined us. Grab a notepad and a pen. We'll start in just about a minute. Thanks for being with us.
Real estate has created more millionaires than any other form of investing. But, how is that working out for you? Did you become a landlord and invest in rentals, expecting monthly cash flow? Only to become burned out, with all of the headaches of tenants, toilets and turnover? Are you shut out of the game by high prices and tough lending conditions? Is all of your investable capital locked up in a retirement account, and you don't know how to put it to work in real estate? Well, you've come to the right place.
All right, episode 3 of the No Club USA Cash Flow podcast. Glad to have everybody back. The feedback's been great. We're having a good time with this. And as you know, we've got a building block approach. We started with Y notes and investing in performing notes. That's what I did to set up my retirement. I've got cash flow now that I don't have to worry about. And we had a great guest on in episode 1, Doug Faust, who's a CEO of a hospital in Wyoming, who's now set himself up that he can retire. And just an update, he did put that last piece in place. So his worry-free cash flow is over $10,000 now. Hats off to Doug. The next episode was Dr. Emily Thompson, and she talked about how she made lemonade out of lemons just by knowing how to deal with what happens when some of the note payers stop paying. So, and we may be in totally over your head when we're talking about notes. So in a minute, I will move to the classroom, give you a quick example of how a note transaction works, but not very long. We have resources for you to check that out. But the focus of today is in the lower right-hand corner of that intro you saw. That's the locked vault. That represents perhaps money you have tied up in retirement accounts, or maybe your vault is empty and you haven't started investing for retirement yet. I will tie in a note purchase that I actually did. It's actually a case study where I used an HSA. And because of the way I structured it, when it paid off 6 weeks later, I made 15.9% in money that will never, ever be taxed. It's a very cool strategy. I learned it through Quest. And most people don't even know that you can self-manage your retirement funds and you can invest in just about anything. Derreck will cover the couple of things that you can't. But today's episode, you know, whether you're a real estate investor, note investor, whether you're a private lender, you may have already been exposed to some of this, but I'm also trying to reach the folks out there who've never really thought about investing or don't understand how it works or find it too confusing or think they don't have enough money. I mean, even if you just to get started with $50 a month, you need to grow that tree. We need to have invested 20, 30 years ago. They said the best time to plant a tree is 20, 30 years ago. So we find a lack of education and motivation in today's society, so much so that with the Secure Act 2.0 that just passed Congress, in fact, our guest was instrumental in getting a lot of the provisions in there. The government has set it up so that if you start work with an employer and they have a 401k, eventually they're going to enroll you in your 401k, whether you know it or not, and you have to opt out of it. So the bottom line is the government is finally admitting that we're going to have to take care of ourselves in retirement, not just in retirement, but funding our lifestyle. And Derreck's got some of the secrets on how to build wealth through tax advantaged savings. He breaks down Roths, Coverdales, the HSA. I did a presentation to a group of about 25 real estate agents back in September, and nobody had ever heard of an HSA. Actually, maybe one or two did, but none of them knew you could self-direct it. So we've got a lot of great strategies today. I don't want to wait too long because Derreck's in the studio. Like I said, in deference to the people who have no idea what note investing is, but they were caught up in the title of today's episode about learning about self-directed IRAs and tax advantage investing. Just want to show them a little bit about what we do. And then I got maybe a lifeline to real estate agents out there who are struggling today. Going to throw you a lifeline real quick with some stuff going on here in Dallas that might be of help to you somewhere else. Real quick shout out for that. And then we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to take a 30-second break, move everything over to the classroom. We'll see you over there. Got about a 15-minute presentation, and then we're going to see Derreck Long from Quest Trust, and guarantee you're going to find a lot of his stuff really glad you came for it. So anyway, be back in 30 seconds. See you in the classroom, and we'll get going. All right, we're back. I still have to chuckle at that ad. I love it. I love the look on her face when the guy offers her 50% ARV. And hey, I've been a wholesaler too, so I've been there, but still makes me chuckle. Anyway, if you've seen our presentations before, I am required to give you a couple of disclaimers, such as there's no such thing as a safe investment according to the SEC. And of course, you've seen this disclaimer before if you followed us, but I'm not a lawyer, CPA, or financial professional of any kind. This presentation is simply for entertainment and educational purposes. Any results displayed herein are not to be considered typical, and nothing's for sale or investment at this time. The bottom line is to always check with your advisors before making any kind of investment decision. All right, so for those of you joining us for the first time here at No Club USA, this is our mission statement. We educate and help people invest in and create payment streams backed by real estate without the traditional investment headaches. Quite simply, it's about more profit with less stress. Now, since the focus of today's podcast is not on note investing per se, but the whole gamut of investing with investment and other tax advantage funds, I'm not going to go into too deeply on note investing. If you go to our website, noclubusa.com/CF for cash flow, there's a good 40-minute presentation in there with several case studies and other information you might find interesting if you enjoy the example I'm about to show you. I'll show one example of an actual note as a case study, but then we'll move on to the meat of today's presentation. All right, so today's brief case study is going to be on a tract of land in North Carolina. Market value is $45,000, and the history on this would be that the owner of this land owned it free and clear and decided to sell it to a private buyer on seller financing. So the seller became the bank. The new owner became the borrower. The rate was 9.9%, which was typical for land back a few years ago. Might be a little higher now. But I do like being a lender on land, mainly because if things go south and the buyer stops paying and we have to take the property back through one of several means, we don't have to worry about winterizing the property like we would up north in a house. We don't have to worry about eviction. We don't have to clean up. I might have to clean up a little trash, but we're not worried about them trashing the property. So it's a lot easier to work with. And so let's look at this case study in a little bit more depth and see how that all played out. All right, so back in April of 2020, with a market value on the land of $35,000, the Owner decided to sell for $34,900 with $2,500 down, which is not unusual in a seller financing transaction. And so the buyer had some equity in the property and created a mortgage note with the seller for $32,400, 9.9% interest rate, term of 20 years, a monthly payment of $310.52. As transaction secured by a first lien note on the land, so that if the buyer does not pay, eventually the lender can go ahead and take the money back, or take the property back. All right, so fast forward 2 years, we'll say the land is now worth $45,000, which is a pretty good approximation. The original lender now decides to sell the note. He wants to recapitalize his bank, and that's one great thing about the note business is we're just selling paper. We're not selling the brick and mortar underneath, so we can exchange interests and assets very quickly. And so he puts it into the marketplace, and the buyer, the owner of the property, now has 24 payments and appreciation. So they're invested in the property. They've got good emotional and financial interest in continuing to pay. And at this point, the mortgage note balance is down to $31,258. I purchased the note for $27,430 with 216 payments remaining. If you followed us before or watched our presentation, that's called buying at a discount. I bought over $31,000 worth of debt for $27,000 and change. And the quick reason for that is that increases my yield. The seller knows that. I might not be happy with 9.9%, but by getting at a discount, I get a bump in my yield up to 12%. And it's also not terribly unlike when you sell a house or other investment property for below what it's worth, just to get it moving. That's the way it works in this business too. And in a moment, we'll show you another reason why we buy at a discount. So just to put a visual onto what we're doing here, I went and bought $31,258 loan balance for $27,430. And those of you who've watched my presentations before know this visual, but it gives us the right to collect $310. There were 216 payments left. So over the life of that loan, it's $66,960, which makes my effective annual return 12%. Now, generally, he's not going to hang onto the property for 20 years, certainly the loan. He may refi, may go ahead and pay cash, but anyway, this is an effective illustration of how the discount gets our yield up there. And really, this is mailbox money. And actually, with the servicer I use on this one, it really does come straight to my mailbox. All right, so let's talk about that event that might happen where the underlying owner decides to refinance the property out of that 9.9% rate, or pay it off in cash, or sells the property. Well, in that case, on the orange part of this graph is what he owes at that time. He'll have to come up with $31,258 to pay me off. And I only have $27,430 invested in the deal. So I would get my entire amount back plus $3,828 of a payday right off the bat. So my return would be 13.9% right off the bat, which is demonstrating the power of buying at a discount. Now, this doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's a good thing. Okay, so let's talk about what happened in the real world on this particular asset. The landowner decided to pay off the underlying lien in 6 weeks. So in that time, I collected $527 in interest. He had paid down a little bit of principal. So in the end, after 6 weeks, I received $4,355 as a payoff, which is a 15.9%. And the beauty of this one, and I'm using it today, is because I bought and sold this note with a health savings account. I did it through Quest Trust, and we'll talk about this and other things with my guest, Derreck Long. But the beauty of this is that $4,355 gain will not be taxed ever, as long as I use it for medical related expenses. And we'll talk about that going forward. So pretty cool. And that's why I use that today. HSAs are great, as are some of the other strategies that Derreck's going to work with today. So if you haven't seen this presentation before, just want to emphasize that we're not doing all this work ourselves. Just like you might have property management for your rentals, we have note management. We use a servicer who does all the work for us. Some of the things they do is they collect payments, they escrow taxes and insurance, they're licensed and compliant in every state. They handle the borrower's issues, they collect the payment, take out a small fee, and send that cash to me every month, or a check, mailbox or ACH deposit. The key is to outsource, and it only costs about $15 to $50 a month. Now, of course, the first time anybody sees a note presentation, we know what you're thinking. What if they stop paying the note? Well, there's a very good presentation on this in podcast 2, where we talk to Dr. Emily Thompson, who's a specialist in resolving these workout options. So we'll talk about that. It's actually not a big deal, not a hassle. When you buy the note properly, you have a good investment to value on the property. It's just a matter of going through the workout options. To see that episode or any other episodes of our podcast, simply go to our website, noteclubusa.com, and click on podcast. And all of our episodes are up there about an hour after they go live. If you really want to see about the instances where people don't pay, then that's episode 2 with Dr. Emily Thompson. All right, so the episode today is on tax advantage investing and making the power of time and tax breaks work in your advantage. And my son Brian passed this saying along to me. He says, there's a 70-year-old version of yourself looking back, hoping you were doing the right things today. And he was actually referring to himself and his generation, whether it's diet, financial decisions, and investing. We find today that, especially with the younger generation, it's an instant gratification society, and retirement is for something that they're going to see much later down the road. They'll have time to save up. And to be honest, I would change that saying to 60 years old. As somebody who's reached that milestone, I'll tell you what, you don't wait to 70 to wish that you'd done some of the things that you could have done before. They say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. And one of my goals in this podcast series is to reach a younger generation to start planting these seeds early and help them with their retirement, or just investing goals in general. For folks who've reached my age, there's still plenty of things you can do, and I found Notes to be a great vehicle for doing that. But yeah, that's the focus today. But I do want to give a shout out to my son Brian. All right, so this is him in 2011. We had just started a small wholesaling company while he was in college, and tending bar. He went out and put our bandit signs out at night. He got his license, real estate license, several years later. Whatever you've been through with trials and tribulations in your real estate business, he's been there. He's not just called expireds. He's door knocked. He's faced rejection, but he kept his nose to the grindstone. And a few years back, he went and decided to start a team of his own with his wife and one other gentleman. They literally had a closet in the large Keller Williams building in North Dallas. That's where they started out, and they said, failure is not an option. All right, so fast forward some long, hard years, and these are the 2022 numbers in a market where a lot of people struggled, a lot of teams struggled. They number one team in Livian, one of the top 100 teams in America. They had 152 million in closed and forecast volume, 368 closed and forecast units, 54% increase in agent partner income, and a lot of this is due in part due to the systems that Brian's put in place. He's a big systems guy. The leadership that's been installed in the team, the support staff that helps agents every step along the way, the training that's in place, and they have a lot of camaraderie too. This was taken during the Christmas party, so you can see they don't take themselves too seriously as well. They do a lot of events in the community, movie nights in the park, things like that. So they have a lot going on, and they're always looking for good folks to come along and join them. Here's just another one of the many awards that they have won. And just in case you're thinking those numbers came mostly from the early part of 2022, this is actually January of 2023, just a month and a half ago. I haven't seen the numbers for February, but I know they're up there and on track to keep increasing. So regardless of the market, they're cranking it out. The agents are busy and making money. So reason I bring this up is I do have a lot of real estate agents who contact me about notes and note investing, a lot of KW agents I'm in touch with. And if you're local to the DFW area and you're struggling as an individual agent and want to see about possibly getting plugged in and using Brian's system and joining the team with all the training and the camaraderie, you'll want to reach out. If you're a team and you're anywhere in the country, got a team or brokerage who's struggling, you want to find out more about Livian and Livian DFW in particular, and what Brian's done to raise the status of that team, both financially and in prominence, go ahead and reach out. It doesn't cost anything but a phone call or an email, and I think you'd be glad you did. Probably your best primary contact is his older brother, Danny, who's one of the rock stars in the local area when it comes to real estate. Does a lot of new builds, specializes in helping new homeowners get into their first home, but he can help you in any aspect of real estate. He's also a recruiter for the team, so you want to reach out to him. Here's Dan's contact number if you want to find out more about Livian, or if you just want to buy or sell a home here in the North Dallas area. He's the guy to go to. He'll get you hooked up into the Livian system. But like I said, if you're a struggling agent, reach out to them as well. If you need a title company, my daughter is head of escrow at a local title company, so we got you covered in all sorts of ways. And finally, before I move on, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention their podcast. Brian's got one with a couple of partners. It's called The Only Real Estate Podcast Worth Listening to. They're, I think they just finished episode 177, so they've been doing this quite a while. A lot of good information there. They have a good time. They talk about just about everything. And they were recognized on Inman's list of one of the top 23 podcasts that will make you the smartest person in the room. I think they came in like around 15 or so. So anyway, every Wednesday afternoon, 3 o'clock Central Time, or you can catch them on YouTube, catch the replay. But always entertaining, and I think if you have any interest in real estate, you'd enjoy this. And like I said, I credit Brian with putting this quote out there. I would change it to 60, but today we're hoping to reach some folks who, whether you're in your 60s or 30s or anywhere in between, educate you on some of the tax advantage strategies that are out there, how to create wealth in ways that only the wealthy think about. Now, I know it can be very confusing out there, especially if you weren't raised with any kind of real financial education. You look at terms such as traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, SEP IRAs, you see the words individual retirement account, you think that's just for older people. 401ks, solo 401ks associated with your employer, health savings account, or if you even know that HSA stands for that. Covered health savings accounts for your kids and grandkids. There's a lot of information out there, and some people just throw up their hands and rather go to TikTok and watch videos. But today we're going to bring you what I think is tremendous value, and we're going to get your education boosted up a little bit, whether you've been familiar with these things for a while or whether these are all new to you. That's why you're here. So I'm real happy to have our guest on today, Derreck Long. He's a senior IRA specialist at Quest Trust Company, and it's the custodian that I use. Not only is Derreck an expert in all of these tax advantage strategies, but he actually walks the halls of Congress, he wades into the swamp, and lobbies on our behalf to give us these strategies and strengthen them within legislation to make sure they're going to be there and improved over time. Done a lot of yeoman's work, especially over the last year and a half, turning the boat around in Congress from kind of shredding the provisions of IRAs into codifying them to be stronger going forward. So I think you'll find what he has to be very interesting, and we'll get started here shortly. Do have a special offer for you. Let me talk about that real quick, and then we'll get on with the show. And I believe that's true. Risk comes from not knowing what you're doing in all aspects of life, but right now we've seen a sea change in a lot of the investment markets, and if you haven't been through some of these cycles, you're going to be awfully confused and not clear on what to do next. And you'll have to admit that since the COVID pandemic broke out, things have changed quite a bit, and it's very confusing out there. We have a lot of turbulence out there. We've got declining real estate markets. Depending upon where you're at, it could be severe, it could be slight, but the days of continued crazy appreciation are over with, at least temporarily. We've got higher interest rates, don't know when they're going to stop, but they're certainly higher than before. Borrowing standards now are pretty tight. The mortgage availability and affordability has gone down by almost a half in the last year or so. The Wall Street buyers for all of your wholesale deals have gone away. They went away pretty quickly in 2022. Used to be you could buy a property and be guaranteed that Wall Street will buy it no matter what. Those days are gone. So wholesalers are having a tough time generally. There's lower inventory out there to begin with. And stock market volatility is driving people crazy. S&P was down about 18% last year. So the question is, what do you do? Now, those of you who know me know that I don't teach any classes here with No Club USA. This is simply a conduit to help you find out more information. But I do have the next best thing, and that's a free training from my mentor, Eddie Speed, on notes, note investing, creative financing, and a whole host of other things that I think you might find pretty interesting. And honestly, some of these bullet points might speak to you. You're concerned about what to do when your real estate market starts to decline quickly, the best time to use the market fluctuations to your advantage, which note investing path could benefit you the most. Like I said, we haven't really gotten much into creative financing, but they're going to talk about that. But most importantly, I think they're going to get into the headspace, the mindset that we enter this transitional period in. If you're in real estate or any type of investing, we know that things have changed quite a bit. But if you know my story, you know my why. This is what we want to get into, is what is your why? And for those of you who know me, about 2.5 years to go to retirement. That was back in 2021, middle of the pandemic, and we were facing all the uncertainty with COVID. And I noticed that I had a lot of cash built up in retirement funds, but I did not have cash flow. And I happened to discover Noteschool through another provider, and went to a class, and I said, this is what I've been missing. This is exactly what I've been interested in. I dove in very deep, very hard, very quick, because I knew that time was not on my side. Unlike some of you who are watching today who have plenty of time to plant those trees, mine needed to be planted 20 years ago. But anyway, I dove right in to learn this, but not only did I learn it, but I took massive action. So much so that I earned last year's Noteschool Note Expo Note Investor of the Year award. That's me on stage at one of the trade industry's largest convention. That's Eddie Speed on the right of the picture. But this isn't to pat myself on the back, but just as a reminder that when I look at this, that I dove in because of my why. And my why wasn't to hold that piece of glass right there, but my why was to provide the financial stability and future for not only myself, but my family going forward. I actually have many whys. Why do I do this? Well, these are two of them right here. And these are two of my grandkids, Colton and Easton. We have another one yet to be named, going to be arriving here in a few months. Our daughter is having her first child, and we're excited about that. But for me now, in my stage of life, it's just about as much about legacy planning as it is making sure that my wife and I have enough to go forward. So a lot of cool tools when you get into notes about devising different ways to use tax advantage planning for not only yourself, but your kids and your grandkids going forward. So this is part of my why, and that class is going to ask you to dig deep and kind of talk about your why too, not just the nuts and bolts of investing in notes or investing in brick and mortar or whatever you do, multifamily, but what is your real why? And I think you'll find that really valuable. Max Keller is going to be presenting with Eddie Speed, and Max is a pretty good motivational speaker. Used to be a school teacher, but 2 hours with Max will really help you examine your headspace, and I've found Max to be a great asset in my journey going forward. So like I said, what is your why? Why are you here today? Why are you learning about tax advantage funds? What are your goals? These are all things that are going to be covered in this free class that I have limited seats to. So it's a gift from Eddie, and I want to make sure that people get to take advantage of this. All right, so in this masterclass, you're not just going to get to walk away with 2 hours worth of video education. You're going to get to walk away with some tangible assets. You're going to have a note investor map. You're going to get a note investor book that Eddie wrote. You're going to get a partial note calculator. I tell you what, folks, learning about partials will be worth the price of admission alone on this particular class. It's going to be part of an entire podcast that we do down the road. Partials is something that when I teach this stuff, people just kind of sit there with jaw open saying, you know, that's incredible. Basically, the way it works is, you know, that when we invest in notes, we're buying payment streams, whether it's 30 years worth, 10 years worth, whatever. That's an asset, and we can sell off part of that asset in terms of a certain number of payments to another investor. And oftentimes we can do that for pretty much near what we paid for the note to begin with. But that still leaves us a residual number of payments on the back end that we essentially have no basis in. It's an incredible strategy. It's great for legacy planning. And I'm looking forward to tuning in. I'm going to be at the class as well because I always learn something. You never know enough in this business. But I get excited by the partial, and I think you will too. If you're like me, you're closer to retirement, you'll get a retirement white paper that talks about retirement and other issues. But like I said, this is for everybody. So it's 2 hours, and I think you're going to be well invested with your time. It's March 29th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. If you can't make it, please do sign up anyway, because I do believe Eddie's going to offer a replay to anyone who signed up to attend. And so if you're not sure you can make it, go ahead and sign up anyway, and you get to watch it at your leisure at home shortly thereafter. Once again, seats are very limited. Normally they charge for this class, but I've been able to secure free seats. Just need you to reach out to me, tom@noteclubusa.com. See what all the excitement's about, learn how to pivot in this market, and I think you'd be very glad you did this. If you've enjoyed our series so far, you're really going to enjoy this presentation. So anyway, I'll wrap this part of the classroom up. I'm going to take a short break. It's about 2 minutes or so. If you want to get up and stretch, grab a quick drink. We're going to come back. Derreck will be here. He's already in the studio. I'll play a little video here, and we'll be back in, like I said, just about 2 minutes. Hey, it's Tom Force from No Club USA, and today I'm in the beautiful paradise of Punta Cana on the eastern tip of the Dominican Republic. Didn't always used to be like this. Back in the late 60s, some investors bought about 30 square miles of jungle and turned this into a paradise over time. It included Julio Iglesias and Oscar de la Renta have invested during that time. But it used to be called Drunken Point, and they turned it, they named it Punta Cana, which is probably a much better marketing move. But the Cana refers to that palm tree behind me. As you can see, I think that that base there can be a parallel for our investments. Looks like you can push that thing over. The water continually erodes at the base of that tree, but those roots have gone deep and wide, and they're probably down there a long way. And so you can't knock that tree over, even though inflation, as we would call it, is wearing away at the investment. I think there's a pretty cool parallel there. So anyway, I think we could say that the original investors here, their ROI was, we'll call it pretty good. Don't need to get a calculator out. But how's your ROI going these days? Scared money, sitting on the sidelines, losing to inflation, stock market afraid to open up the 401k statement, rental real estate has its ups and downs. The pro forma doesn't always match the cash going in. And I've got an Airbnb as well, and last time I was on vacation, my guest drove me crazy, ruined a couple of days of my vacation. If you have an Airbnb business, you know what I'm talking about. What I'm not worried about is the cash flow from my notes. I've got a servicer taking care of those. I don't get phone calls about broken toilets, tenants, or any of those other headaches. And so I can relax and enjoy the fruits of my labor and have that cash flow coming in, and I'm not having to put out fires. So anyway, I'll make it brief. I'm gonna let you go. As you can see, as my unpaid actors walk behind me, you can see how deep those roots go. Let's work on getting your roots deep and start looking at note investing. Go to my website. We're gonna launch a podcast in January and hope to have you guys partake in that. Or you can go to my website, we can have a consultation or just ask me a question. I love talking about it. Most people don't know about Punta Cana. Most people don't know about note investing, but they're gonna fall in love with both. So come see noteclubusa.com and come to Punta Cana. You'll be happy you did both. Have a good one. Okay, so we're back, episode 3 of the No Club USA Cash Flow Podcast, and I am very honored to have as my special guest today, Derreck Long from Quest Trust Company. Actually, Derreck is senior IRA specialist, but he's a lot more than that. He works with Congress on our behalf to help us set up all sorts of tax-deferred savings, and that's kind of the focus of today's episode we've already talked about. So we're going to dive deep into that. There's a lot of stuff that folks don't know about tax advantage investing, and I've been investing in with self-directed IRAs for quite a while, probably over 10 years, and it was about that time that I actually had money to put into that type of stuff. And I've been with 3 different custodians, and I've moved everything to Quest because, as I was telling Derreck before, you guys get it. You're investors. Your education is second to none. I'm going to promote your YouTube channel when we're done, and your customer service is second to none. I don't go more than 5 minutes without them answering a question. So just had some issues today getting a medallion signature guarantee on something, and they were right on top of it. So I love you guys. So Derreck, this is kind of a family deal for you. Why don't you tell your folks a little bit about yourself and how you got involved?
Yeah, so it's actually really funny. My dad really came aboard a Quest about 2005, 2006 timeframe. We've been around since 2000.
Okay.
And in 2008, my dad wanted me to join Quest and join him on this real estate venture and everything else. I said, no, I'm smarter than you. As a matter of fact, that real estate business isn't doing anything. You know what's going to be better is me opening a restaurant. My dad is very, very cordial though, and he applauded me taking a leap and trying to do my own business. Well, if you've ever tried to open a restaurant, it's a lot harder than you think.
Oh yeah, so, it's very hard.
What's really funny is years and years went by. I joined the Army to get out of debt. I went to college, and during this whole time, my dad was still doing a lot of investing using my retirement account. And every time he did, he made me sign paperwork for him. And I finally kind of started to look more at that self-directed IRA side and more at the real estate investing side, and realized there's a lot more to it, and there's a lot of wealth to be made. Not just money, but like actual wealth.
Right.
And so I shifted my whole business plan, and I'm part of Quest.
Fantastic. And what exactly is Quest? I talk about, Quest as a custodian and all that. How would you describe what the company does?
Well, we're exactly that. We are a retirement custodian that specializes in what we like to call a self-directed IRA. But unlike a Fidelity or Charles Schwab, you don't come to us to invest in stocks or mutual funds or annuities. You come to us to use your retirement account strictly to invest in real estate style assets. So this could be buying a physical house. It could be you doing a loan, right? Doing notes, buying notes, or sectioning them out. It could be even doing syndications. Because of this, I like to think of us like a Chick-fil-A. You know, you don't go to Chick-fil-A for anything besides chicken. So you come to us only when you want to use a real estate, use your retirement account for a real estate investment.
Okay. Are there other things that you can invest in with self-directed IRAs? Just kind of curious.
Absolutely. So there's custodians like ours all across the U.S. Some specialize in cryptocurrency. Some specialize in those public or private style stocks. Some specialize in small business. Some specialize in gold and silver. You know, you can actually use your retirement account for anything except life insurance and what the IRS considers collectibles, because the value of a collectible is kind of, it's tougher to value.
Sure.
So ultimately, you can invest using a self-directed IRA into anything. I like real estate because it's tangible. I can touch it, feel it, see it, look at it.
Okay, fantastic. And I know that's eye-opening for a lot of our folks. Is it just retirement accounts, or are there other types of accounts that you have that aren't per se retirement accounts?
So there's also, we have retirement accounts and what I like to call specialty accounts. And the specialty accounts are actually way more powerful, but they're less utilized. And it typically comes down to education. These things are like a health savings account, not to be confused with a flexible spending account. So an HSA or a Coverdell account, also known as an ESA or education savings account.
Right.
Both of these you can leverage and utilize in real estate, have all of your earnings, avoid all the taxes. And I do mean 100% of the taxes.
Right.
And spend the money today for personal use.
Fantastic. And we're going to jump right into that. So the folks who've, watched my podcast so far and our target audience, I would categorize as two folks. One is the younger generation who kind of sees retirement as a future problem, and they're not either not ready to invest, don't know how to invest, or think they don't qualify, that kind of thing. I think it takes a lot of money, and so we'll address them. And then you have folks like me who are right in the middle of the retirement jungle, where I retire in about 15 months, and the allocation of assets is very important in understanding withdrawals and withdrawal order and stuff like that. So if you don't mind, I'm going to turn the floor over to you and kind of if you would go through the main accounts at Quest, how they work, what it takes to be involved in those, and who they might be perfect for. So I'll just kind of step back and let you run with it.
Absolutely. So I break it down to 3 different categories. And I always say there's 7 real accounts that can be self-directed. And the first one is a personal account. So if I say this, I'm saying you as an individual can set up these accounts. And that would be a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. Both of these accounts, they're tied to the individual. And a lot of you out there might already have a traditional IRA indirectly and not know it. Because this is what your 401k will turn into. This is what your 403b, your TRS, TSP, whatever it is that you have. They all turn into a traditional IRA eventually. I like these accounts only because most of the time that's where you have the majority of your capital. These accounts, though, they do have a downside, meaning they grow tax deferred.
Right.
I say it this way because as we do investments and they grow, you're deferring taxes until a later date. So
and the reason for that is that when the money that goes in there wasn't taxed to begin with, right?
Correct. So you put the money in there, either you get a tax deduction or the money just wasn't taxed because it was pulled out of your paycheck prior. So this is good and bad. The IRS is thinking about this as, hey, you put $10,000 in today, we're not going to tax you on that 10 grand, but it will grow to 100,000 and we'll tax you on the 100.
Right.
So they know a lot of people today, they want the, I need it now. I need that. I want something today mentality. So that's what they're leveraging with a traditional IRA.
Okay.
However, the Roth IRA is the exact opposite. And if you really look into it and you're willing to give up that tax deduction, use a Roth. The reason why is today, same example, the IRS will tax you on the 10 grand. We're going to use the Roth IRA. It works the exact same way investment wise, but instead of tax deferred, it's technically tax free. The reason why is you get taxed on the 10 grand and the growth is 0 taxation, and not just for you, but even for your heirs. So if you pass away, they can inherit your Roth IRA and avoid the death tax and everything else. So what's really nice about the Roth is we can truly do these investments 100%, whatever it is you're looking at, and avoid 100% of the taxation.
On the Roth at the account owner's passing, is there a 10-year spend down for the heirs? Is that in place, or is it, or do they have to spend it down in 10 years, or is that not apply to the Roth?
So they do, assuming that the person who inherited is at least 18 and or not the spouse. So the spouse doesn't count. The spouse can take it as their own and they're good. They can keep growing it.
Sure.
But if you have a child that's 15 and they inherit it, no, they get to wait until they're 18 before that 10-year clock starts.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So who's eligible to set up a Roth? How would you fund it? What are the different ways to fund it? It's obvious to me, and a lot of people, that's the way to go. I run into constraints because I make too much to contribute to a Roth. So there's ways around that. Tell us about the base of knowledge on things like that.
Sure. So the most common misconception is everyone says, well, I don't qualify for a Roth. Nope, that's wrong. Everyone out there, I don't care if you're making $1 billion a year, you qualify for a Roth IRA. What you may not qualify for is to make a direct contribution. Right. So if you make more, and it's not very much, like if you're married, it's like 220 grand a year, 250 grand a year, or something like that, which in today's day and age is surprisingly not that much anymore. Right. So if you make too much money to contribute to a Roth, you have to take some extra steps. All it means is you make the contribution to a traditional IRA, and then we do a Roth conversion. Now, a lot of CPAs, they'll say, hey, you don't want to do that, or you can't do that. And this is because a lot of CPAs charge you per tax form you fill out. If you're going to do this movement, right, you have to fill out what we call an 8606 tax form. Okay. Which says, hey, I made a contribution to a traditional, but I didn't take a tax deduction because I'm converting it to a Roth. Right. Well, CPA says, I don't want to fill out that form, so you just can't do it. So I think too often than not, people are confused. And they think, I don't qualify for a Roth IRA. Right. Everyone out there does. Everybody.
So in theory, and this is what I did last year, I had the traditional with you, and then I made a contribution, even though I make a lot too much to take the traditional deduction. It was made the contribution, then it did the conversion over to the Roth. So since we're in, when this airs, it'll be March. Is it too late to take the deduction or the contribution for 2022?
It is not. You can do it all the way up until April 18th of this year. So as long as you have a check in the mail by April 18th, right, and it's postmarked, you can still take the tax deduction or get that money in the Roth. So
take my folks through what they would do. Let's say this appeals to them. How would they get started just setting up? So I guess they would set up would they need to set up a traditional first and then a Roth, or how would you recommend doing that?
Yeah, so setting up an IRA literally takes about 5 to 10 minutes. You fill out an application, name, social, date of birth, who inherits the account when you pass away, and a signature. Like, it's super quick and easy. You don't even have to fill it out twice if you need the traditional and the Roth. It's very easy, and Quest can do it. Absolutely, we can. But any custodian out there can do it as well.
Gotcha.
So I always like to tell people, like, look, this doesn't just apply at Quest. This applies with your local bank. This applies with Fidelity and Charles Schwab, right? We're talking about retirement accounts. You can do this anywhere.
Right. And the beauty is, like you said, it grows tax-free. You'll never pay. Everything comes in, and that's outstanding.
Exactly. So it's a huge advantage.
When we talk about tax advantage, I think another one that really surprised me when I came to Quest is that you will be the custodian for health savings account, which is something that I kind of started late in life at my employer, but I didn't like the investment opportunities there. So I moved that to Quest, and actually invested in a note with that. And that was one of the good ones where we did the happy dance because it paid off 6 weeks later. But you guys were amazing with the paperwork. So tell everybody about the HSA. How's that work, and the triple play of tax savings on that one?
Sure. So if you're out there and you qualify for an HSA, which means you have to have a high deductible health plan in place, right? Okay. But when I say that term, don't think of the deductible dollar figure. Every either company or every insurance company can change what that high deductible means. So just, you always have to ask, hey, do I have a high deductible health plan with an HSA? Okay. As long as they say yes, you can set up these HSA accounts. Now, what this means is every time you make a contribution, you get a tax deduction today. This is awesome. So that's similar to the traditional IRA, right? So you get the tax deduction for going in. But when you pull it out, as long as it's for a medical expense, it is completely tax-free. So notice, we like to call it the best of both worlds, right? Because you get the tax deduction here, and you get the tax-free distribution here. Gotcha. But it's even better. If you use the HSA for any type of investment, all the earnings are also tax-free. Sure. Now, what's unique is every time I say this, people go, well, medical expenses, is that like the doctor visits? Absolutely, right? But it covers way more than that. An HSA can even pay for things like your glasses. It can pay for like over-the-counter medication. It can pay for anything that is considered COVID-related, which includes hand sanitizer, Kleenex, face mask, Tylenol.
Wow.
So I always like to point this out that, wow, I can work my job. To make $20, I really got to make $30.
Right.
Right? IRS takes $10. I go spend the $20 on that same hand sanitizer, Kleenex, etc. Or I can use an HSA, invest it, actually make a real $30 tax-free, spend the $20 and invest the other $10. Like, it's so unique. And if we can leverage these accounts and you qualify for them, they are probably some of the most powerful retirement tools and or investment tools the IRS has ever given us.
So let's say I'm in my 30s and I've got one of these high deductible accounts, and I start socking money away in it, and I invest and all that, and I have a medical expense. The way I understand it, I don't have to claim that receipt now. I can kind of aggregate my receipts or whatever, and maybe down the road, let's say I have $100,000 worth of expenses I've accrued over the years. Can I go ahead and just take that money out at that point, cash out those receipts?
Absolutely, you can. If you guys ever hear my dad speak, he loves to tell the story. I tell it differently because I always say it was his midlife crisis. But what happened, and this is a real thing, is so my dad and my mom at the time, they had to, my mom had to have some dental surgery done, right? And it was actually pretty expensive. It was about $20,000. Okay. Now, my dad paid for most of that out of his own pocket instead of using the HSA. What he did then is over the next 5 to 6 years is he kept growing the HSA through investments until he had $20,000 in there, and then just took a distribution to pay himself. That $20,000 that we're talking about he pulled out was tax-free. What he did with it, he went and bought an airplane. I swear to God. And I joke with him because I always say that was his midlife crisis. Like, oh, I'm going to learn how to fly a single-engine airplane. So went and used all that money to buy an airplane.
That's great.
So, used an HSA to buy an airplane, tax-free.
So it's really a just supercharged way to set up your retirement. It's just another way of doing it.
That's correct.
You just sit on those receipts for a while. That's, I wish they had these around, and I knew about it, back then. So, yeah, the HSA is real cool. What about saving up for education? We talk, a lot about, for retirement and, health savings and all that. What do you guys do in terms of education savings?
So you have two accounts you can actually utilize. Now, one of them is the Education Savings Account, also known as a Coverdell or ESA.
Okay.
Now, I think these accounts are really unique and powerful, but we don't set up too many of them. But pretty much what happens is you set up these accounts for a child under the age of 18. You make contributions, and all of your earnings through investments are 100% tax free. I can't stress that enough.
So that's after tax money you're putting in, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a limit each year on that?
There is. Oh, there's not a limit to earnings, but there's a limit to how much you can contribute.
Okay.
So I can only put in $2,000 a year per child.
Okay.
All right. So if I have this money and I set it up, right, and great, we're going to put this money in there, we can grow it tax free. You can pull out any of your earnings at any point in time for education expenses. Every time I say this, you jump to college. Yes, it covers college, right? And it covers schooling all the way up until the age of 30.
Okay.
But we can also use for any current school expenses, things like laptops, backpacks, school uniforms. It can even cover certain after-school activities like band or something along those lines. So it's nice to know we can use these accounts.
Okay.
And they are very powerful. The problem is that $2,000 contribution limit that I mentioned.
Right.
Right? Think about you as an individual. If I put $2,000 in, I'm going to let you know it's tough to do some investments with a $2,000 limit, you know? So you have to either A, partner it with one of your other IRAs, your personal IRA or something like that to get it working right. Or B, we use the other account that I mentioned, which, believe it or not, is the Roth IRA.
Okay.
The minute your child is born, you can set them up a Roth IRA. Huh.
Okay.
I didn't know that, right? You just have to pay them, right? They have to have earned income. So pay them $6,000 a year or something like that and contribute the $6,000. You're good to go.
Okay.
Now, knowing this, we can pull out not only your contributions, but any of your earnings to pay for higher education expenses, tax-free. So this covers not only college, but it could also cover trade schools. So I let people know we can use either one of these accounts. I always tell people, talk to an IRA specialist first. Let them get to know you as an individual. How old are your kids? Because if they're 1 year old, the ESA might make sense. If you have a 16-year-old, maybe the Roth's going to make more sense, you know? And we can look at both of these and look at it on an annual basis.
How old were you when you got a Roth?
So when I was graduating high school, my graduation present was a Roth IRA with $3,000 in it. And my dad gave it to me and he's like, here you go. I was like, cool. When do I get to spend it? And he goes, when you're old. And I was like, that's stupid. I don't want that. Right. As I think most 18-year-olds would, you know, I'm pushing 40 now, but like at that time, it was unique to see this because over the next 10 years, my dad would invest my Roth IRA, that $3,000. And every time he did an investment, he made me sign the paperwork. And then my dad would text me, right, or call me, hey, just letting you know you got another payment of $30 back to your retirement account. Hey, just letting you know you got another payment, $35 now, because obviously it's increasing.
Right.
And when I was about 27 or 28, I looked at that account and there was like $12,000 in there. The only thing that was ever deposited was that $3,000.
Nice.
I didn't do anything for that. I made $10,000 tax free.
That's a great story.
It changed the way I started looking at this stuff and changed how I started going about investing. Because as that grows, it's grown to a much larger dollar figure now. So,
oh, absolutely. Fantastic. Can I just do it for my kids or can I set up my grandkids? Do I have to have some sort of interest? You know, can I just set up for anybody or like how would I do that? Say I've got a couple of grandkids and I want to set them up for it. How would that work?
Well, I always say the responsible individual has to be the one to actually sign the paperwork, but anyone can contribute for the grandkids, right? Okay. So for you, it would be your kids would have to actually be the ones that set it up for their kids, and then you can still be the person who contributes to it.
Now, that contribution limit is total for the year or per person who's into. In other words, I can't do 1,000. My son couldn't do 1,000. It would be total for the year. It's a total amount that's put in.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, gotcha. So I just want to make sure that we hit on this point real quick. Is that that IRA or I'm sorry that ESA, the Coverdell, even though it's only got a couple of $1,000s in it, or maybe $5,000 in it, I can partner with that when I buy notes. And
Yes,
so that kind of tags along. And so a portion of each payment every month would come into that kid's Roth or the ESA, tax free, and that they're getting the benefit of, tagging along on the train, so to speak. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that's what my dad did. Like if someone wanted to borrow $100,000, my dad was really famous for charging 12% or a fancy way of 1% a month,
Right.
So he
Easy
would
math.
lend 97,000 from his account and 3,000 from my account. When the
Okay.
borrower made a payment, the payment was just automatically split, saying, "Great, we know that $970 goes here and $30 goes here."
Fantastic.
And so when the note paid off, we now had $3,100 to lend and $3,500 and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Outstanding. I know there's a lot more to get into with that. I think
Sure.
you've done enough to get everybody's juices going a little bit. So I do have one question here. Going back to the HSA, what kind of reporting requirements do you have for that? In other words, I've got my receipts together. How does that work? Do I just send off a batch of receipts to Quest, or how does that work?
No, so honestly, this is really unique because you only need the receipts if you get audited. We don't
Okay.
need to actually verify what your distribution is for. And a lot of this comes down to the IRS is really vague on medical expenses. Prime
Okay.
example is you can use it for things like multivitamins, right?
Okay.
I can use it to get acupuncture. I already said we can use it for Advil and Tylenol and stuff like
I'm
that.
thinking a gym membership might be appropriate.
So notice a little
Yeah.
column A, a little column B, right?
I've got a
So-
doctor who'll sign me a prescription to go to the gym. I need it.
right? And so what's funny is if you actually really want to look into it, it's IRS publication 502.
Okay.
Now, when you go to
Fantastic.
bring this up, it says these are all the things that an HSA covers. And it's like 66 pages long.
Wow.
Like, and you can use it even in certain cases to cover vet bills sometimes. And it's like,
Yeah.
really? And
Yeah.
it is unbelievable what you can use it for.
It is. And I was amazed, Derek, like I said, that when I start talking about notes and investments to a younger generation, they don't even know what an HSA is. And so that's why I really wanted to get on early in this podcast series and have an expert like you come on and talk about this, because it is so powerful. And we all wish, we had planted this tree 20 or 30 years ago. You were fortunate. You had the family influence. But
I did. And so out there, just so you guys know, if you listen to my story, I did not care about this stuff when I was younger. And there's honestly, if you're out there and you have teenagers or young college students or high school students, understand it is very difficult for them to look at you as the investor. It's very difficult for them to look at you as you know what you're talking about because your mom, your dad. Right. But as they get older, it shifts. And for me, it was about 27, 28 years old. I was like, maybe that old man knows something that I don't know. Maybe he's smarter than I thought.
Imagine that. Fantastic. One last thing on these, we bring it back to notes. We've got a bunch of notes in Quest accounts. What kind of reporting requirements do I have, at the end of the year? What do I have to provide to you to stay compliant and on top of that?
Sure. So the biggest thing is you have to do something called a fair market value. Understand that when I use my IRA and I buy Apple stock, the IRS does not require this because what's the stock worth? Oh, there it is, right there.
There it is.
I can't do that when we own a private investment like a note. So you actually have to physically tell your custodian the note is currently worth this.
Right.
It doesn't take long. I mean, if it's an interest only note, well, the note value hasn't changed. If it's interest plus principal, you typically need to provide a amortization schedule. Just kind of going down through that value.
And every good note investor has one, so that's piece cake. Send it in, it's all done.
And it only takes a minute. It really does. But the problem is people forget to do it or they don't want to do it. I will absolutely do it for you, but I charge $75.
Right.
Guys, it takes 10 seconds.
Your online portal is amazing. All the forms, the secure uploads, and I get an email every couple of weeks. Hey, get that fair market value in, and yeah, okay, I'll get it done. It's one of those paperwork things we have to do. So that's fantastic. Before we go, and I've been very appreciative of your time, and I'd love to have you back, on a regular basis to cover some specialty stuff and whatever's new. But you mentioned you do a lot with Congress, and I know that you were very instrumental in the way Secure Act 2.0 came down. So what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, is touch on the bullet points just a little bit, so we give everybody the idea of some of the important points that were in there. And then when we come back from the break, I'm going to link to your YouTube video.
Perfect.
From January. We go into that a little bit depth, but I think there were 5 or 6 bullet points in there. RMDs, Roths, the 4 savings for new hires, that kind of thing. If you wouldn't mind touching on each of those, and then I'll set my folks up to get more in depth on that.
You got it. So like Tom was saying, guys, I have a video where I break down per link and I cite all this stuff. So we're just going to kind of touch briefly on what the bullet points were. First thing is Congress has become very pro Roth IRA. In the previous years, people didn't realize this, and they would use scare tactics and make you maybe set up accounts because, oh, Congress is going to get rid of the Roth. Well, that's not the case. As a matter of fact, they're adding additional Roth contributions to 401ks, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs, etc. So it's nice to see that Congress is becoming very pro Roth.
As compared to last year, where they were really trying to stick it to us, it looked like they were going to hit us with the syndication problems and accredited investors. They were really going to rip it to shreds. So it was a nice turnaround. You guys did good work.
Yeah. Well, you know what the biggest aspect to that was talking to them as individuals and not as congressmen. Well, what do you invest in? Well, I use my investment for these syndications. And it's surprising how many of them do. And it's like, well, now this bill says you can't. They go, oh, oops.
Yep.
One of the other aspects is if you're younger or you're starting a new job, the IRS will start to force this next generation to save for retirement by making their paychecks and a portion of them go to a 401k. Now, they literally put it in there that they treat it like a subscription, so they can cancel it any time, right, or they can change it at any time. But they're thinking, hey, if the money automatically goes to their 401k, it's going to make them save. And honestly,
why do you think the government wants that to happen? Why? What's the premise behind that?
Well, the biggest aspect comes down to we've already seen a drastic decline in saving for retirement. Right. And a lot of it comes down to this me now. I need it now. I want something. What's in it for me today, not what's in it for me in the future. And I think a lot of that actually comes to social media. Social media provides all these other hoopla things where they're trying to give you something today and they don't look at it as what's in it tomorrow.
Right.
So we're seeing a lot of that come drastically. And that's why the IRS and Congress is putting this in place.
Derek, if I can backtrack for just a second, just remind me on a point that I missed. If you got somebody like me who's in a W-2 job, who's, got a substantial 401k set up for a while, how would I move that to Quest? Or am I able to do that? How does that work? Or is it just tied up in the stocks and bonds that my employer offers?
Typically, before you move it, I tell people, make sure you know what you want to invest in, because you don't have to move over the full balance. We only have to move over what you need for an investment. All right. Next, you do have to either be over a certain age or have what we call separation of service, quit, fired, lost your job, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Now, every employer is either going to give you the ages of 55, 59 and a half, or 65.
Okay.
So they'll let you know when you can move your 401k if you're still working. If you're younger than that, good luck. You can try to fight, and sometimes they'll let you go, and depending on if it's a small or big company, but most of the time you got to wait till you're older.
When I turned 59 and a half, I grabbed every penny and got it away from them and managed it myself. So I just wanted to hit that real quick. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, back to Secure Act. We talked about the forced savings for the new hires and
the Roth aspect, but one of the other unique ones is the RMDs. IRS is realizing and Congress is realizing, guess what? We're living longer. So the RMD age is now increasing as of this year to the age of 73. And by the year of 2033, it will increase again to 35, to 75.
So over short order, as I recall, it's gone from 70 and a half to 72.
Yep.
Now it's going to go to 73 and phase into 75.
Yep.
And for once, I'm actually on the right side of the ages. It's just kind of moving right in front of me. So
exactly.
Hopefully you guys can get to 78 or 80 here pretty soon.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot more to the Secure Act, but these are what I'd consider to be like the big bullet points or the highlighted points. And I break it down, like you're saying in that YouTube video, per section, and it's all cited if you want to read it as well.
For some of my viewers, they might be interested if you touch on the employer treating the 401k contribution as debt for the student loan.
Sure.
And could you expand on that just a touch?
Absolutely. So what's the student loan issue is actually a big problem, right? Whether you want to say, oh, hey, yeah, just let the government wipe it all clean, or you're like, no, don't do that. That was their choice. Doesn't matter. Okay. What the Congress decided to do is say, hey, you know what? If you're paying down a student loan. Let's just say it's $1,000 a month that you're paying for a student loan.
Mm-hmm.
You can treat that as if you put that money in your 401k tied to your employer. So now your employer is going to say, hey, we see you put in $1,000 and we can match you whatever their percentage is, dollar for dollar, up to 3-6%, etc. So what's nice about this is even though you're not actually putting money in your retirement account, it's treated as if you did. So you get your tax deductions, A. B, the employer can now keep matching you as if you did as well. So this is really nice because it's one of those ways that, hey, look, if you are a younger individual or you do have those student loans, you might not be able to put money in a 401k and pay off the debt. So we're going to go ahead and combine those as one, as if you're still saving. So it's a very unique thing that we were able to pitch and got passed.
It's a great turnaround from 15 months ago, man. I tell you what, it's nice to see things moving in the right direction rather than punishing people who want to, provide for themselves. That we're actually putting in mechanisms to help them do that. This has been a great session. Anything else you want to say to our folks? I know we'll have you back at some point. And I do want all your contact information or a couple things. How to reach somebody as far as setting up accounts, how to reach you if they have questions, and anything else you want to provide to us.
Absolutely. So first off, guys, all the information I gave you today applies to any retirement custodian out there. Okay. So anyone out there can help you. If you want to use your retirement account to do notes or real estate, let us know. That's what we are an expert in. You can call us, and it's a non-automated line, which I think is just rare in today's day and age.
Right.
It's 281-492-3434 or 855-FUN-IRAs. You can email me as well at info@questtrust.com. That comes to me directly. It really is. Right. And honestly, guys, just ask questions. Even if you just have questions about retirement, we don't have salespeople on staff that are there to sell you any investments because we don't have investments for you. So you can get good education, and we just are there to provide you what we can. So,
Derreck, where are you located?
We're located in Texas. We have offices across Texas, but we do business not only in all 50 states, but like 11 or 12 countries right now.
Wow, nice.
So, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. All right, my friend, this has been awesome. Derreck Long from Quest Trust Company. Lots of good information. If you didn't learn anything today, you weren't paying attention. You were asleep. So you should be fired up. Derreck's one of those good guys out there, not just working for a paycheck, but man, he's making it easier for us to create generational wealth and keep more money for ourselves and less for the government. And he's actually going up to Congress into the swamp, waiting in there and getting results for us. So all things considered, folks, I don't get anything for pitching Quest, but they do right by me and get involved. Just, start putting a little money away, even $50 a month. Just start small. And like Derreck said, it'll be worth it.
Absolutely. So Tom, thank you so much for having us. If you guys have questions, let us know. Let Tom know. That's the whole purpose of these things, is just to give people education. So
brother, we're going to have you back sometime soon. I do thank you for taking the time here. We're going to take a very short break. We'll come back. I'm going to list all of that contact information. I'll link to Derreck's great video on the Secure Act, and we'll wrap it up. Thank you, Derreck. Appreciate it.
Bye, Tom.
Looking to buy real estate but don't know where to start? Since 2010, Danny Force with Keller Williams has helped hundreds of first-time buyers and investors begin their real estate journey. Danny has sold over $100 million in his career in all corners of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. He has the knowledge, experience, and connections to make this as stress-free a process as possible. Finding properties, setting up showings, and negotiating offers are just some of the things he can do for you. Come talk to Danny today at 817-518-7606 and use the Force in real estate today.
Well, hopefully you found that segment with Derreck informative. I know I always learn something when I talk with him. After this ending here, I'm going to post the info for Derreck, all the contact information. Also, we're going to have this podcast up on our website, No Club USA, within about an hour of this being done. And on there, I'm going to link to 2 YouTube videos that he has out. One's a deeper dive on the Secure Act, and the other is about investing in small accounts. It's a great article as well. I'd subscribe to Quest Trust's YouTube channel. Lots of information on there. And then going forward, if you're ready to get started with them, contact Derreck. Now, just a little insider's tip. normally cost about $100 per account that you set up with them. So if you're not in a hurry and you're just in the learning phase, get on their mailing lists, because generally every couple of months they have a promotion the last 2 or 3 days where you can sign up for unlimited accounts, and it doesn't cost anything to set them up. So, but if you're ready to roll, go ahead and get a hold of Derreck and go ahead and get going. So hopefully you found that valuable. If you have any questions you'd like us to answer on the show, go ahead and enter those at our podcast site at noteclubusa.com also. Hopefully those of you who are real estate agents who are struggling found some value in my little presentation on Livian. Reach out to the team through Danny. We'll go ahead and get you hooked up. And then going forward with the notes business, if you stuck with us this far, hopefully you've enjoyed what you've seen. You're more intrigued about what we do. Like I said, I don't offer any classes. I'm not doing this for compensation. What I'm really doing it for is to get more business partners. To be honest with you, I broker notes, look for partners to invest with. And so I'm expanding my sphere in that regard. And if you'd like to join that, one of the best ways is to get taught by the best. And Eddie Speed's one of the best. I mean, if not the best and most experienced teachers in this business. So go ahead and take advantage of that free ticket to the masterclass on the 29th. If you can't make it, that's not a big deal. Go ahead and sign up anyway, because there will be replays that you'll be able to take advantage of. And if you're a real estate agent struggling in this market, you'll want to learn all about the creative financing strategies as well that they're going to talk about. So anyway, I'll list a link to that information as well. So anyway, until we see you next time, that should be March 24th. Got another great guest lined up. Take advantage of some of the resources we gave you today, and then hopefully we hear from you soon. But if not, we'll see you on March 24th. Thanks for joining us.